Hey,
All right, I just hit the record button and we're about to start in three, two, one. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Justin Spurlock Show. Last night was one of the most epic football games that I've ever seen in Dickson County history. Dickson County Cougars, Creekwood Redhawks squared off in the first game of the 2022 football season, and it came down to the wire. It actually went into overtime. First time that this game has in this series has gone to overtime was last night, and Creekwood was able to win the game 13-7, and it was just a really good game overall. And wanted to get some post game reaction from Dickson County's favorite fan, Mr. Tyler Breeden, also known as T Money. I've got him on the line right now. T Money, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So your Red Hawks won the game last night, and
Thank you.
what are your just first initial reactions to the game overall and Creekwood's victory?
Just so happy to keep the streak alive and getting ready to see how they do the rest of the season.
It was a really good game. It came down to the wire, but let's back up just a little bit. Tell me
Okay.
what were your thoughts going into the game? Before the game, what were your thoughts as far as the chances that Creekwood had versus the chances that Dixon had? I know a lot of people were saying, it could be anybody's game, but what were your
Uh-huh.
thoughts before the game started?
I just thought, leading up to that game, yesterday and last night, I didn't want to see a blowout between both teams. I wanted to see a really close game like we saw last night.
And I guess that's exactly what happened. It was a really close game, and
That is. So yesterday I sit down with all the candidates in Dixon at one of the Mexican places, and I was like, you know what? I really want to see a close game, and we all predicted a score last night, and actually mine was the closest last night.
so what was your prediction before the game?
Well, me and Jackie, well, I don't even. It was like 14-7,
Really,
Creekwood.
you got pretty close.
It did. I thought it was going to reach that way, but it was a close game.
It really was. It was a really close game. And speaking of, your friends there, at the end of the
Uh-huh.
first quarter, there was a little ceremony. And that's another reason why I wanted to have you on today is because you were honored there last night after the first quarter for all the things that you've done for the community. Tell me, what was it like going out there and with those guys and being out there on the field and being recognized? What were your feelings?
I was kind of nervous at first because I've never done that in front of the whole crowd besides graduation. And it was amazing. And I actually got the award right here near me right now. If anybody wants to see it, I would be happy to show them.
What does it say on there? I'm just curious. Could you tell us here on the radio?
I can. Let me actually grab it here.
Because that's quite an honor, and I know that you were very honored, to be out there and everything, and it had to be a little bit nerve wracking to get out there in front of everybody, but
It was really nerve-wracking, actually.
really, I can't imagine how nervous you might have been.
Oh, well, let me read it here. It says 2022 Campaign of the Year, Tyler T. Money Breeden.
Wow. And so that
Yes.
was given to you by who exactly was out there with you?
That would be Mr. Talmadge Woodall, Jody Barrett, Tim Meads, and Jarrett Creasy.
And that was really nice for them to allow you to, do that in the middle of the game and to be honored. And, a lot of people know you and your connection with
Yes.
sports here in Dickson County. You go to a lot of the games, especially Creekwood. I know you're a big fan. You went to school
Uh-huh.
there and everything. And, I want to say thank you to all the things that you do for the community. And I'm really glad that you decided to jump on here with me today and just talk a little bit about the game last night because, like I said earlier, it was one of the best games, if not the best game in this series that I might have ever seen. What are your thoughts as far as how good of a game was it? Was it one of the better or the worst? Where would you rank this as far as in the all-time series between Creekwood and Dickson County?
it was the best. There was a lot of calls that weren't made during the game and stuff like that.
Well, let's expand on that a little bit. What were the issues that you thought as far as that goes?
There was like 2 or 3 pass interference calls never called.
Mm-hmm.
I think that should have been. I was actually standing right there when it happened. And there was a lot of penalties against Creekwood where they were holding and stuff like that. I actually saw 2 fights, if I can say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a couple of, that was all, basically.
So it was a game where, it was a lot of high energy and,
Yep.
It's a rivalry game. So the guys get, pretty pumped up for this. And unfortunately, one team did have to lose. What were your thoughts when we got to halftime? I think it was it 7-0 at halftime, if I remember correctly?
It was actually 7-7.
7-7. You're right. It was 7-7 at halftime. What were your thoughts when we got to halftime and it was still a really close game? Really, anybody could win as we go into the second half. What were you thinking at that point?
Just it's fixing to be a better half. One team's going to win and one team's going to lose. I didn't know who it was going to be.
Did you think that Creekwood had a pretty good chance to win based on what you had seen in the first half?
Yes, I did. And I've heard a lot. I didn't make any of the practices for both teams, but I've heard a lot of things about last night. Actually, last night leading up to the game, I had a couple of the players for Creekwood come up to me and say, look, it's been a really great practice the past couple of weeks. We know you couldn't be in the school because of COVID, but we feel like we got you a win coming tonight.
I guess they came through, too. But it was close. It was really close. And as we go into the second half, and it's tied, and then there was just a lot of action back and forth. Talk to me a little bit about what your feelings were as we went down the stretch, and we started to get close to the end of the game, and things were still tied.
I guess towards the end of the game, like into the fourth quarter, like when Dixon got that pick, I thought it was a touchdown. I was like nervous, this could be. And then I seen the ref throw his flag, and I was like, that's not a touchdown. He's going to call it back, basically.
Right. What did you think about that play overall?
I thought it was, I didn't know what was going on. I had to ask several people, but nobody really tell me.
Well, Dixon did not end up scoring, obviously. And
Nope.
And it got really tight there at the end, and then it goes into overtime. Tell me, what were you thinking when it went into overtime? Were you nervous?
Yes, I was nervous. I didn't have much to say to anybody. Like, everybody kept coming to ask me, what do you think's going to happen? I was like, I don't want to tell you because I don't know.
And tell me, where were you standing whenever you're watching all this go down on the field there at the Cougars, Dixon County Stadium?
So when it went to overtime, I went to the other end zone and watched it live.
And what were you thinking at that time whenever the game ends and overtime's about to begin? Describe to me the emotions, the emotional roller coaster that's going through you at that time.
Just didn't know what to say or what to do about it. I was like, man, this is fixing to come down to a really close, good ball game right here.
Were you afraid that Dixon County might actually pull through and win for the first time in several years and sort of take back the series? Were you kind of worried that might happen?
I actually was. I told myself if they do, just, it's okay. It's because it's a preseason game and it's not week 1 of the season yet.
Right, and that's a key thing to remember. While this is a huge rivalry game and it means so much to me and you and all the students at both schools and so many people, it really is not like a conference game. It's not something that really plays into the overall standings. It's really more or less a game sort of for fun. I mean, I don't want to take away any significance from it. It's an important game, obviously, and I'm not trying to say it is not. But, you can still go on and do great things if you win or you lose this game. And I think it's key to remember that. But it is, it is a big win for Creekwood. And as, as the clock winds down and, Creekwood makes those plays to be able to win the game, what were your thoughts right at the end of the game as Creekwood and, I guess, eventually did win the game? What did you think?
Just so happy to see it, a win at Dixon County. I watched all the players get a little crazy at the end of the game, and then I said good luck to him. I was going to give one of the post game speeches, and I had to leave. I didn't want to say something because I did, and I didn't want the guys mad at me, so I just left.
True, true. Well, now that you've had some time to reflect and it's the next morning, a lot of people do listen to the show. And, of course, we've got over 1,000 followers on the Facebook channel, which, we're very proud of. So we got a lot of people who, do listen to the show. And I imagine several of the people, players, big fans of Creekwood, may tune into the show to hear what you have to say. If you could talk to them now that you've had a little time to reflect, what would you say in regards to the performance last night?
Like, if the coaches and the team come up to me today at my house, which I'm at, I'd be like, hey, that was an awesome win. Let's continue that streak if we can.
It really was. It was a great win for Creekwood. And obviously, as a teacher over at Dixon County High School, of course, I wanted, my guys to win. And I saw so many players out there that I had formerly been in my classroom. And it's just a lot of fun to watch them when you know them personally like that.
That is something I told the coaches before the game yesterday, Creekwood. I said, guys, I ain't been there at all because of COVID. I said, I love y'all. I would really like to see a Creekwood win. I mean, that way I can be happy tomorrow. Get ready to go watch the Titans battle the Buccaneers tomorrow night at Nissan, and hopefully get a win there too, so I can be happy the rest of the weekend.
Well, you must be happy with their performance last night because they, eventually pulled out the win for you, and so that's got to be, a lot of fun to be able to watch that, and you got to look back, this morning on last night with, some good, immediate initial memories of last night.
It was.
Well, what would you have to say overall about your experience at the Dixon County Stadium last night, at Cougar Stadium, there, getting to receive an award, getting to watch Creekwood win, a last-minute, really good game, I have to say, one of the best I've ever seen. What are your just thoughts overall on the game last night and your award and the overall experience of the night you had? How would you describe it?
Well, when I went out there to get the award, I'm glad you asked that. Everybody on the Creekwood side started shouting Team Money, and I was like, this is kind of cool to see it here and announced at Dixon County Stadium because I hear it at Creekwood High School all the time, and I was nervous the whole game. I couldn't hardly eat last night at the game. I was like so nervous.
Well, and I have to say, I'm really proud of Dixon County for allowing that to happen. Obviously, you're alumni of Creekwood and a big fan of Creekwood and all that.
Yes.
But you've done a lot for the county overall, and so I appreciate everybody kind of coming together and allowing that to happen. So, what would you have to say to the folks over at Dixon County, the administration, and those folks who allowed that to happen and kind of showed some unity? What would you have to say to them?
I would like to thank them one day, and if they ever need anything, they can holler at me, and if I need something, I'm going to let them know if they would help me.
Absolutely. Well, and that's great, and that's good to see these two sides coming together because, there is some animosity there, but overall, there's a lot of respect, and it's just kind of good to see, both of the big schools of the county come together and have a nice competition, but have a lot of respect there for each other. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've been talking now for about 15 minutes, and you tell me, was there anything else that you wanted to say in regards to the game last night? Because, like I said before, really was one of the best games I've ever seen. As far as Creekwood games, you've been to a lot of them. As far as the excitement factor, as far as just the overall atmosphere and the crowd, where would you rank this amongst Creekwood's greatest games?
That's going to be a tough one. The past couple of years, Creekwood's made the playoffs, and the crowd has went crazy. I'm going to rank it right in that area because I don't remember when the school started anything about them because I wasn't there yet.
Right, absolutely. Well, I think you're correct in the sense that it's one of the better games. It did kind of have a playoff feel to it for being the first game of the year. It really kind of did. It did feel like the playoffs, didn't it?
It did. I was like, man, maybe they can continue this. I told one of our baseball coaches last night on the phone, when I got home, I was like, man, it's going to be the rest of the season's going to be tough, but I see a couple more wins, I believe, coming. I don't want to say for sure because I don't know. I actually told him on the phone there's a couple of teams on our schedule like Pearl, Tullahoma, Marshall County. I would like to get a win against them if possible.
Right, right. So you think pretty good outlook for Creekwood. Not sure what's going to happen, but it's after last night, it's whenever you are coming off of a win, you've got that momentum. Hopefully, Creekwood can keep that going.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully. Now, what's your assessment of Dixon County? Because they played really well last night, and some of these games in the past, I hate to say it, but regardless of who won, whether it was Dixon County or whether it was Creekwood, sometimes it was a blowout, which is not always the most fun to watch for either side, really.
Right.
Let's just be honest. But last night being such a close game, and really Dixon could have won, had their opportunities. Dixon County could have won the game several times, and I don't think they have anything to hold their head down about.
Well, I told a couple of the candidates last night at dinner, I would like to see something happen this year. And you go to Dixon County, and I go to Creekwood. I would like to see Dixon County win one or more games. I'd like to see Dixon County get a couple of wins this year. I'd be happy if they would do that as well.
Well, and absolutely, and I feel the same way about Creekwood, and people don't understand that all the time.
Right.
But we really, we want to beat each other in the big game, like last night. But after that's over, and we don't play each other again this year, well, of course, I'm going to root for Creekwood to beat everybody and then,
right.
do their thing.
I'm going to pull for Dixon to win some games this year, too.
Absolutely. And I think after last night's performance, I think, even though we didn't win over at Dixon County, I think that we should be proud of the performance, and
yes.
I think we should take that the good things that we did last night, build off of those, and hopefully, we can get some wins starting next week, because I really am looking forward to a good season after that game last night.
Me too.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I told a couple of the coaches after that game last night, I was like, you know what, just go back to the school and relax and get ready for week one. I was like, because week one really starts next week with Cleveland hoping up at Fairview. I hope to see a good crowd there. And Dixon going to Columbia.
It's going to be exciting. It'll be fun to watch these two teams next week as they take on some different opponents and see how they do against other teams.
One thing I heard last night on the radio, and Coach Parker, I love the guy to death, mentioned it. Everybody should come out to Columbia, even Dixon County fans, this is what I'm referring to, and Creekwood fans to go down to Columbia next Thursday night, as well I think he said, I'm not for sure, and go support the Cougars. And the next Friday night, all the Dixon County fans should come out to Creekwood and support the Red Hawks and Fairview game.
Wow, that is a good idea.
I would love to see it happen if it could.
Well, when you've got teams playing on different nights, it makes it possible. So it sounds like sounds like a possibility for the fans, to be able to watch two games next week instead of one. And after the fun game that we saw this week, if next week is anything, half as good, then it would definitely be some good football to be seen by everybody.
Well, last night, I record the My TV 30 opening game of the week every week. It don't matter if it's Creekwood and Dixon. And last night, it was Fairview and Page. And I remember coming back at the last minute, and Page blew Fairview out last night. I don't remember that final. And I'm hoping that the Red Hawks can keep it a close game. I don't want to see a blowout like it was last night. I want to see a very close game until the fourth quarter, and then I'm going to tell Creekwood, look, it's time to put the pedal to the metal and beat them.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks for calling in today. I truly appreciate it. I really like to hear your insight on the games, because I know that you go to, all the games pretty much that you can get to. And so you've seen a lot of sports for Creekwood and Dixon County, and I appreciate you calling in and giving your take on the Red Hawks game. And if it's not too much of a, if you've got time and it's not too big of an issue, if you don't mind, we'd like to have you come call in regularly and give your thoughts on the games, because I know a lot of people in Dixon County, want to hear what you have to say. And,
Yes.
I know that you watch the games and everything, and so you've got an opinion and got an
Uh-huh.
analysis that you'd like to give. So, we've got a radio show on WDKN Saturday mornings that we can
Uh-huh.
get you on, and then we've got the radio show here on Facebook Live. So,
Mhm.
thank you for calling in, and if it's not a problem, we'd like to get you to come back. What do you think?
It's not. Do you mind if I give a couple of MVP player of the game last night? Do you mind?
Absolutely. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So who do you think on the Creekwood side? Who do you
Actually,
think?
I've got one for Dixon and Creekwood.
Okay, let's go ahead. Give us that information. I'm curious to see who you're gonna give the award to for the player of the game last night on both sides. Let us know.
I'd like to start out with Dixon. Kobe Lambert, I think is his name.
That's him. Yes, quarterback number
He
7.
played an awesome game last night. Even though when he come over to the sideline, he was cramping. He got over it, and then he played a good game. I'd like to give it out to Creekwood's running back and wide receiver, number 11, Jaden Elliott. He's a good kid. He's just a sophomore, and I think over the next 2 years he'll be improving and get better.
And before we go here, let me ask you a little bit about this. So,
Okay,
so as far as Colby Lambert, he did have a good performance last night.
he did.
Talk to me a little bit about what were your thoughts on how he played.
He played really well. I didn't know what to expect because I ain't never seen him play much in the last couple of seasons. So I didn't know what to expect. I've seen Ethan Donaldson, our Cleveland's quarterback. He used to be the starter. He used to be the backup to Jacob Stevens, and they would bring him in. And one thing I learned over the past couple of seasons, and you can and y'all can remember this. This Creekwood quarterback, his brother, actually played in the past couple of seasons for the Red Hawks.
Interesting.
His brother was Elijah Donaldson.
Right. Yes, I remember. Yeah. Great
And
player.
he was actually there last night. He come down and stood beside me a whole lot. He said, I remember, I was like, I wish you were still out there playing, but even though your brother's out there.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there was some great players on both sides, really, and I appreciate you giving us those MVPs. Talk to me just a little bit about the Creekwood most valuable player. Tell me a little bit about why you chose him.
Well, because last night, on the way home after every Creekwood game, it doesn't matter if it's a road game or a home game for the Red Hawks, I listened to the radio show, and every player that they're going to give an award to, I want to give a shout-out to because I took this team this back in July before we started school. I said, you know what? If I can't be at the practices, I'm going to be at every game if I can. And I told this team on our last scrimmage at Clarksville, I said, you know what? If y'all need me, Coach has got my number. It's not hard to get a hold of me. If there's something wrong, I would love to help y'all.
Absolutely. That was really a good thing of you to say and to do. Absolutely.
And I would like to say, when I wish Dixon could go beat Columbia next week, and I wish Creekwood could beat Fairview next week.
Well, it'll be a lot of fun to watch. And I want to say one more thing before we go here.
Yes.
At the end of the game, and it was great because the game was broadcast on WDKN, so you got to hear the play-by-play from Robert Freeman and company, as they say. Freeman and company were covering the game. Coach Rodney Parker was there, and they did a great job on the audio side of things. And then it was broadcast on YouTube, so there was the video as well. And so, not only could you watch it there at the stadium, but there was a way that you could watch it remotely. And one of the things that I noticed there at the end of the game that I wanted to mention real quick was the way that the teams kind of came together at the end, and there was some unity. They shook hands. They kind of came together at the end, and I really liked that. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that really kind of got me, and I will say this, I love Creekwood. At the end of the game, when Creekwood scored that touchdown, I watched about 2 or 3 guys, not want to say anything bad about them, but they was coming over on the Dixon side and waving at them. And I'm thinking, why are you going to do this to a crowd that supports both schools and be rude like this?
Right.
And I'm thinking, if you can do this, why can't you do this to your own team when you get beat or win a game?
Right. Well,
one else thing I think, I don't know who runs the school board for Dixon. They never put that final score on the board last night.
Well, that's interesting, and and that's the thing about a rivalry like that is. Absolutely. Yes. You want to win the game, right? You want there to be competitive nature there, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're fair to both sides, and
yes.
so and that's the key, right? And that's the message you're trying to give here is that hey, look, we want to win, but we want to respect the other side. Am I right?
Yes.
Well, I have to agree with that message because that's the same way that I feel. Is it's fun to be competitive and it's fun.
It is really fun to be competitive, and I told me and the coaches talk a whole lot in the office after every game and before, and all these coaches do a lot for me, and I love them to death for Dixon and Creekwood. I'm pretty sure I'm one of the Titans game day. If I didn't have a way, I could make a phone call to one of them right now, and they'd be on their way to go to the Titans game. That's how they are to me, and I love them for doing that.
Well, that's great. That I know they've been real good to you, and you've done a lot for them, and that's just a great relationship. And I just appreciate you reaching out to me and being willing to do the show and talking a little bit about Creekwood, because I'll be honest, as a Dixon County guy, I went to school. I was a Cougar when I was in school. Now, I work there and got a great relationship with all the kids over there, and love watching them and supporting them. Nothing against Creekwood. I just that's just not where I go. So I'm glad that you could come in and kind of give us an insight on that, because our radio show goes all over Dixon County, and we love the Creekwood fans, and we love Creekwood. I just don't know a lot about it, so I was great when you and I started getting together and talking about doing this not too long ago. I was really excited because I'm not an expert on Creekwood, but you are, so we can come together.
And I would love to call y'all every Saturday morning and give you the post-game report, like how we did and how we stuff like that, like you were saying earlier. I would love to do that.
Well, I appreciate it, and we'll definitely be doing that. So we look forward to having you as our official Red Hawk correspondent for the season here on the show. So thank you for doing that. And I guess it's we're about 30 minutes in, so it's about time to wrap up. We're about out of time here on the show. And again, I just want to thank you for calling in and giving us your insight on the game and overall thoughts on the season. Is there anything else you want to say to the fans before we leave? I know you'll be back next week, but anything else you want to say on the way out here?
Thank y'all for coming out and supporting me on the field last night. It felt amazing. I got a little teared up, but I'm better now and ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. Well, thank you, T-Money. Appreciate your special appearance today on the show. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you more in the season, and we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Of course, we stream here on Facebook Live here on the Justin Spurlock Show to over 1,000 subscribers, and we appreciate each one of you tuning in to these shows. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, but we'll be back later this season to talk more about Creekwood as well as Dixon County sports, and I've had a great time here with my special guest, Mr. Tyler Breeden. That's going to do it for today. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Saturday.